Okay, welcome back to 3.5, which is comparing fractions. Now, one thing about comparing fractions is we need to understand if the fractions are greater than, less than, or equal to. So the first, I'm going to give us two examples about how to approach this. Well, and this is combining of how we need to figure out what a common denominator is, sort of like what we did back with adding and subtracting fractions. Now, the key to this is this 5 and 25. So I know that I need to make this 5 and 25 by multiplying the top and the bottom by 5. So now that is 40 over 25 now. So what is 40 over 25? Well, that is actually going to be greater than, because the 40 over 25 is the equivalence of 8/5, so technically 8/5 is greater than 26 over 25. What about 7/4 and 27 over 16? Well, once again, I know that the 4 can go into 16 4 times, so I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom by 4, which gives me 28 over 16. And that is technically greater than 27 over 16. But on these, you can also have less than, and they can come out to be equal as well. So next part of this, we're understanding exponents. Here's what I see a lot. We take 2 times 2 and 3 times 2, but that's not how we do this. What this means is that 2/3 squared means I'm taking 2/3 and multiplying it by itself 2 times. So look at this, I've got 2 of my fraction 2/3. So now what you do is you multiply. 2 times 2 is 4, and then 3 times 3 is 9. Same thing with 2/3 to the third power. It's easy for us to go and say, okay, that has to be 8 over 9. Or sometimes we do the top 8, but then again, I continue to see, let me get back to this real quick. Let me get back to, I see this a lot too. But that's not correct. That's 2 to the third times 2 to the third times 2 to the third. So sometimes, like I did before, we'll get that first one right, but at the bottom you have to do 3 times 3 times 3, which is 27. Now we can throw out some exponents with orders of operation. But the key to this is understand, okay, 3/4, that's 3/4 times 3/4 because I've got 2 of them. And then I've also got 3, which is 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3. So 3/4 times 3/4 is 9 over 16. 2/3 times 2/3 times 2/3 is 8 over 27. Now I can say, okay, 8 goes into 16. 8 goes in itself one time. 8 goes into 16 2. 9 goes in itself one time. 9 goes into 27 3. So then I have 1 times 1 over 2 times 3, which gives me 1 over 6. Okay, now I've got 1/3 times 2/7 squared. So that is 1/3 times 2/7 times 2/7. And then when you multiply this out, you get 1 times 2, which is 4. 3 times 7 gives you 147. Then they'll try to confuse us and say, okay, what's 1 minus 3/4? Now, when we have something like this, and you have a whole number, treat it as 1 over 1 minus 3/4. Now you look at that 1, and you say, okay, 1 times 4 gives me 4, so I have to multiply the top by 4. So take a look at this, 4 over 4. Well, what is 4 over 4? It's actually 1. It's that equivalence. I'm making that 1 into a fraction that has the same denominator as the 3/4. So now what is 4/4 subtract 3/4? It is 1/4. This is similar practice from our previous section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply, and I'm going to say, okay, 5 times 4, I've got my minus sign. I've got my 1 times 6. And then my 6 times 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. 1 times 6 is 6. Over 6 times 4 is 24. Which that comes out to be 14 over 24. Which if you divide by 2, you get 7 over 12. Next, I have 2 times in parentheses 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 3. So we always do with Pendots, we do our parentheses first. So I'm going to say 2, but then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, 1 times 3 is 3. Plus 2 times 1 is 2. Then I'm going to put this over 2 times 3, which is 6. And I still have my plus 3. So that's 2. 3 plus 2 is 5. So 2 times 5, 6 plus 3. Notice right here, that 2, you can put that over 1 and say, okay, 2 goes into 6 3 times. So this is 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 3 is 3. Plus 3. And I'm going to put that over 1. And now I'm going to just five times 1 is 5 plus 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 1 is 3. So that gives me 14 over 3. Now if it asks you for a mixed number, you could say, okay, 3 goes into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. That gives me 2 remainder over 3. So either one is acceptable. And finally, I'm given one right here that's probably going to give us maybe some headaches. But remember, do this step by step. It does help out a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 125 over 8. And then I'm going to say, okay, this right here is 2/7 times 2/7. Now I've got 125 over 8. 2/7 times 2/7 is 4 over 49. I know 4 goes in itself one time. 4 goes into 8 2. So 125 times 1 is 125. Over 2 times 49 is 98. Minus 1 over 6. My last thing, what I want to do is I'm going to do my nuclear reaction again and say, okay, 125 times 6, which I get 750 minus 1 times 98 is 98. 98 times 6 I'm going to put on the bottom. I get 588. We're almost finished. I get 652 over 588. And then you can divide by 2 if you want to, but what I'm going to do, because I know this, I'm going to just divide by 4. I'm going to step it up and see if 4 goes into it, since both of them are even. You can always just divide by 2 as well. And when I do this, I get 163 over 147. So this concludes my section on comparing fractions and orders of operations. And thank you for listening.